So we need to find out the fraction of particles whose speed is between u most probable plus u most probable plus du. So for most probable, you know that when you plot the curve, then this area at the most probable, whatever the small amount of change in that speed, which you can see it here, okay, so that would be the most probable part. So now we are trying to find out what is the fraction of particles whose speed lies between u mps and u mps plus du. So if at all I subtract these two, u mps plus du minus u mps, I'll get this as du. So between this du, how many fraction of particles do we have? So basically we need to find out dn by n. This is what I need to find out. If you recall, if I multiply this y, which is dn by n into du, this du will get cancelled. I'll get dn by n, which is the fraction of particles, and that is what we need to calculate. We know the formula already, that dn by n is equal to 4 pi into m by 2 pi rt whole raised to power of 3 by 2 exponential of minus m into 2 rt by m divided by 2 rt into 2 rt by m into du. Why I am writing like this? You know, this part which I have written 2 rt by m is nothing but u square, right? In the formula, if you remember, that would be u square, and after that again you will get this formula with 2 rt by m, sorry, uh, you would get this as 2 rt by m, that is also u square. So these two terms are actually u square terms. So that u square, if you substitute as 2 rt by m, because most probable speed u most probable speed is actually under root of 2 rt by m. So we have just substituted that there. So after substituting, what you would get beta? You will get this as dn by n is equal to, now if you see that this get cancelled here, 2rt get cancelled, so that would just be e raised to power of minus 1. So we will have this as 4 by, if I remove this pi outside, the pi which is present inside, if I remove that outside, it will come as 3 by 2. So if it is 3 by 2, this will be under root of pi into, this entire thing would remain as m by 2 rt whole raised to power of 3 by 2 into 2 rt by m okay. So if you multiply these two into e raised to power of minus 1 will be there, got it? And this entire thing into du is what you will have, right? This entire thing into du is what you will have, okay. So I'll just pull this little down, 1 second. Yeah, so from here I can say that this dn by n, which is the fraction of particles, would be equal to some constant, right? So this is all constant, e raised to power of minus n, this entire thing is some constant into m by, because if I take this 2rt by m, you reverse that and add it, correct? So you will do this way, m by 2rt whole raised to power of 3 by 2, and this you can reciprocate, so that I'll get it as minus 1. So that will become 3 minus 2 by 2, which is half, which means I'll get that in root. So 2rt whole raised to power of half into du. So I hope you guys understood that, how we got it. So dn by n is equal to k into m by 2rt per half into du. What important learning we are getting from here is that fraction of particles for any particular type of speed is actually proportional to under root of m by t. Okay, which suggests that if the temperature for a particular gas increases, the most probable speed will decrease, because most probable speed peak will decrease, which means the fraction of particles will decrease at most probable place. Okay, this into du, this is what I got. I hope you understood that. The same logic we have to apply for the next question, where I need to calculate the fraction of particles for urms and urms plus du. Okay, so same question this time for urms and urms plus du. Okay, so you just have to substitute the urms value, so I'm directly substituting that, so I'm skipping few steps here, you can check it out. So dn by n, that would be equal to 4 pi into m by 2 pi rt whole raised to power of 3 by 2 exponential of minus m 3 rt by m into 2 rt. This is 2 rt, this whole into 3 rt by m into du. So on substituting u square with root mean square value, you would get this, and after solving everything you will get something like a constant into under root of m by rt, again 2 rt whole raised to power of half into du, which is quite similar result of what you will get above, just the constant values would be different. So again, which means dn by n will be proportional to under root of m by t into du. Okay, so this is an important uh, conclusion what we got from here. Okay, now next important thing what we need to learn is what exactly is average speed. We got two speeds so far, I'll just put out here. We got most probable speed, which is under root of 2 rt by m. Then we got rms speed, which is under root of 3 rt by m. Now we are looking at a new term called average speed. How do we define this average speed and what exactly it is? Let us see. See, you know how to take an average, right? So if at all I take an average of all the speeds, I might have certain number of particles which have same average or same speed. Okay, for example, if at all I have 100 students, okay, it may happen that 10 students may got 5 marks, 15 students may got 10 marks, 20 students may got 35 marks, you know, like that we will have a distribution, right? Same thing here. Okay, some particles into u1 plus some more particles into u2 plus some more particles into u3 and so on. It is as many as particles we have, we keep on doing that sum divided by total number of particles. This is how we actually identify the average, right? This is how regularly how we identify the average. So on doing that, we'll get u average is equal to, I can write this as summation of I is equal to 1 to some p. Okay, so p as in these many number of clusters we have into dni into ui. Yes bacha, somebody has a doubt? Okay, I is equal to 1 to p dni. Now if you add all of them, what do we get? Suppose if at all I add all of them, it is nothing but, suppose if the fractions are too small, if that dn becomes smaller and smaller, then I can write this as an integral. So integral 0 to infinity, this would be u du, okay, sorry, u dn divided by this, all sum would be equal to n only, correct? So if I put that value of dn, dn value I know, dn value is 4 pi n into m by 2 pi rt whole raised to power of 3 by 2 into exponential of minus mu square by, yeah, so mu square, and this mu square by 2 rt is what we used to have, into u square is what used to have. Now it will become u cube. Okay, it will become u cube because there is one extra u which is present here. Because of that u, we'll get that as u cube, and whole is divided by n. So on solving this, again we are not getting into the calculus of that, how to solve it. On solving that entire term, we will get this as under root of 8 rt by pi m. This is what we will get. Okay, this is the result which we need to know. So in short, the question is calculate the average speed. So average speed would be equal to this much. Okay, find the fraction of particles which are lying between u average to u average plus du, which is exactly same how we have did above. I have did for two speeds already, for u RMS and MPES. For both I have done. I would suggest you to do this as a practice. Try this and finish this here itself. Now, coming to the next important question. This is an extremely important question, guys. Understand the concept behind it. That is very, very important. Okay, check this out. Question reads something like this. Find the fraction of particles lies between u MPS to u MPS plus some fraction into u MPS. Instead of giving this as some du, he has given some fraction into u MPS, and he has mentioned that that fraction will lie between 0 to 1. Okay, so I hope the question is clear. Find the fraction of particles lying between u most probable to u most probable plus some f into u MPS, and fraction is given this way. Okay, sorry. So how do we calculate this? Let's see. We know that dn by n is equal to 4 pi into m by 2 pi rt. I'm just trying to write that so that you guys can recall once again. Exponent of minus m by 2 rt into u square, right? So here u square will be 2 rt by m only. Multiplying that into u square again, so which is 2 rt by m, that into du. Now what is du? Just check this du value here. Got it? You know that u MPS plus fraction of u MPS, fraction multiplied by u MPS. Okay, just u MPS minus u MPS, that should give us the change which is du. So when you do that, what do we get? This u MPS will get subtraction, it will get cancelled. So I will left out with du is equal to that fraction into u times of MPS. Okay, so that would be 2 RT into F into, okay, u MPS. That will be simply u MPS. So u MPS is, we know that it is root of 2 RT by M. Okay, so the same equation I am writing it again. Okay, so just that will be a practice also. At the same time you will understand that better. You see this u MPS which is under root, now that will get into this and it will become 3 by 2 into F. That will become 3 by 2 into F. Now if you observe closely, this one and this one are same terms. See that exactly, just the pi is different. I'll remove that pi outside. but other than that pi, everything else is same, and these two will anyway get cancelled. I hope you guys are able to understand that. So from there I can write that dn by n is equal to 4 pi divided by pi of 3 by 2, which was something which was inside. I took it outside. Rest, you see, everything else got cancelled, that into f. Okay, this is an amazing result, that when you take a particular uh, speed, whether it is RMS, whether it is MP, most probable, or average, the fraction of particle only depends upon now that f value. So dn by n only depends upon that f value, which is amazing, that even if you take two different gases also, two different gases of different molar mass of different temperature, as long as you know the fraction f, dn by n only depends upon that value. Okay, so this is a very important conclusion what we were able to arrive at. Okay. Based on the same, we will see one question which is quite similar to the one what we are discussing. It is a match the column here. So there are column 1 and column 2. If you observe what it is given, in column 1 it says ratio of ratio of fraction of particles lying between most probable to UMPS plus DU and URMS to URMS plus DU for the same gas at same temperature. This is one option. And second time I have to do it for URMS to URMS plus DU. Okay, this time for oxygen and sulfur dioxide. Okay, third, fraction of particles for O2 and SO2 lying between most probable. Here it was RMS, here it was most probable speed, again at same temperature. Fourth one is ratio of fraction of particles for O2 and SO2 lying between U average plus this F. This is the factor F which I said. F into U average at same temperature. There are certain options given here. Not too much of solving is also required. You observe this here. Okay, so this would be very simply solved. First I am trying to solve a part here. Okay, so let me just copy paste here so that you can see it and read it once again. So we are trying to find out this ratio of dn lying between most probable plus u most probable plus du and RMS plus du. If I plot the graph for the same, this is how we know value would be. I mean the bell curve would be, and here is this area represents the du between u most probable to u most probable plus du. This is what it represents. Somewhere here we will get this as RMS. We'll get this as du, which is between u RMS to u RMS plus du. Can you notice one thing? You can clearly see that this area is more than that of this area, which is pretty logical, that most probable fraction of particles having most probable speed would be more compared to the fraction of particles having RMS speed. So I will use that important conclusion here, that what we could see is that the area which is of URMS will be less than area covered by u of most probable speed. So I can say that fraction of particles which are coming due to most probable speed would be more than that of fraction of particles due to RMS. So now I need to take the ratio here, correct? So this ratio has to be greater than 1. So that is dn by n, that is fraction of particles of u most probable, divided by dn by n of RMS, that has to be greater than 1. If you see the options, all four of them, this is equal to 1, this is less than 1, okay, this is also less than 1, this is the only one which is greater than 1. So it is pretty clear that out of these four options there is only one option which is actually matching that, so that should be option C. So we don't have to do complete solving also. Okay, next one, if you see part B, now we can rush a bit. Got it? In part B also, again I have to check out the ratio of O2 and SO2. What we derived just now, for any particular type of speed, fraction of particles would always be proportional to m by t into du, correct? So if temperature is constant, then dn by n of oxygen divided by dn by n of sulfur dioxide would simply be equal to, okay, m of oxygen by m of sulfur dioxide, because rest all is constant. Okay, so that if at all I put, it will come as 32 by 64, which will be equal to 1 by root 2. Okay, so it is that simple. C this time, C is an option between O2 and SO2 for U average plus, this one, SO2 and SO2 for U MPS changing to U MPS plus DU. So whether it is as we just derived earlier, whether it is RMS, whether it is most probable, whether it is average, you'll always get this equation only. So which implies, again, if you take the ratio for the same, you'll get 1 by root 2 only. Okay, so both B and C you'll get 1 by root 2 only. Check out the D part. D part, we have a certain value that is given here, which is 0.5 times of U average. Okay, and we just derived that dn by n will be equal to some constant into fraction into du. Okay, this is what we will get. Oh, not even du, got it, just this fraction. So which means dn by n of O2 will be equal to O2 will be equal to k into some fraction, correct, and dn by n of SO2 will be equal to same constant into same fraction, because the fraction, he said same, take 0.5 fraction for both of them. So in that case I'll get this as dn by n of O2 divided by dn by n of SO2 will be equal to 1. Okay, so that is how you got to solve this type of questions. I hope you guys understood that. So please be aware of these type of questions. This is a previously asked question, so I hope you should be able to work out once again and get it. Check this out. What are the important conclusions we are getting out of it? Okay, first, the fraction of particles having most probable speed is greater than the fraction of particles having root mean square speed is greater than fraction of particles having average speed. Oh, I have made a mistake here. Having not root mean square, having average, because average comes before root mean square. So average speed, which is greater than particles having root mean square. Root mean square speed in a gas at a fixed temperature. This can be depicted from the graph. Usually U most probable have the highest value. You can see that because it is root of 2 RT by M, while this is root of 8 RT by pi M, while this is root of 3 RT by M. Okay, so the highest value is for URMS. That is why it is far away. So this is the distance. So this distance is root of 3 RT by M. Okay, and since it has higher value, you can see fraction is the least for it as compared to average, as compared to most probable. Okay, so that is one important conclusion you would be able to get. And since the values of u are very clear, so we can simply take the ratio of that and remember it. U most probable is equal to 2 RT by M, and U average is root of 8 RT by pi M, and U RMS is equal to root 3 RT by M. So if I take the ratio of these three, what I can say that U most probable is less than U average is less than U RMS. And how does the ratio look like? U most probable, U average, and U RMS is equal to, okay, root 2 is to root 8 by pi is to root 3, and that will convert to 1 is to 1.225 is to 1.414. Okay, so that would be the ratio. I hope you guys understood that this ratio, whether is in this form or this form, has been asked many a times. Okay, and this has been asked like, which of the speeds is more or less. Correct. So this is the second conclusion what we can get. That third conclusion, as we have seen that for any speed we are seeing one thing, that dn by n is always coming proportional to root of m by t. Okay, how does this help us? See, for two different temperatures for the same gas, the fraction of particles decreases. Got it? Because you can see that from here you can see clearly, if the temperature is increased, correct, the fraction is going to get decreased. So that is what happened from temperature T1. If you increase the temperature, the fraction of particles have decreased. So graph will go more towards right hand side. Second, for different gases at same temperature, suppose if I take it at same temperature, if M is increased, it will become more and more steeper. So you can see this is M2, this is M1. So M increases, it will become more steeper. If T increases, that will become more flatter. Okay, got it? Okay, there is a simple way to remember this. Okay, so what I want you to understand is, for problem solving, how you do, think this way. What is the case given to you? Is it same gas, different temperature, same temperature, different gas, or different temperature and different gas? So which scenario is given? You just look over that. Suppose if this scenario is given to you, same gas, different temperature. At lower speed, the parabolic function will always dominate. Remember it this way. So, which means if the temperature increases in the parabolic function, you will see the value will decrease, because in parabolic function, this d, if you just check out how the parabolic function is, it would be u square, which will be equal to some 2RT by m, like this. If it is for most probable, you can see if temperature is increasing, correct? Okay, so what would happen? It will become more and more flatter. Got it? Let me show you how it is. Suppose if at all I write it here, fraction is equal to 4 pi 2 pi m by 2 pi rt, m by 2 pi 2 pi rt whole raised to power of 3 by 2 u square into exponent of minus m u square by 2 rt. This is what we have, correct, into du. Now check this. As I said initially, parabolic function will dominate. Think this way. This entire thing is like a parabolic function. This entire thing. Got it? The other day how we put y is equal to ax square. So this is that function, imagine. Okay, so in this the main contribution is about m by pi RT, correct? Okay, so we know that at lower temperature this will be dominating. Okay, so if you check out by m by t, if temperature is increasing, see the lower value is increasing, correct? You can see here is the temperature part, so that is increasing. If that increases, the fraction will decrease. Okay, same in u also, temperature is down m by RT, if that increases, fraction will decrease. Okay, so that is a conclusion which you can remember, right? So at lower speeds, always remember it this way, that if temperature increases, the fractional value will decrease, fraction of particles will decrease. Same if at higher speeds, if you check it out, you'll always get this. As temperature increases, fraction of particles will also increase. Okay, same thing if you check out for same temperature different gas. Okay, initially it will be dominant. In short, let me show the graph how it looks like in the first case. In the first case, you will see this way. One is at T1, T2, where T2 is greater than T1. Second case, same temperature different gas. In this case, you will get values this way. This is at M2, this is at M1, where M2 is greater than M1 at same temperature. This temperature is same. Okay. Third case, if you check out, it is at different temperature, different gas. Different temperature, different gas, always check out m by t ratio. So at low temperature, check out m by t ratio. If m by t ratio is increasing, this dn by n value will increase. If m by t ratio increases, decreases, here I should write decreases. If it decreases, then fraction of particles will increase. Okay, so this was given 2001 JEE question. On that we have to plot the question, we have to plot the graphs. So same question, based on simply this conclusion, as long as you can remember this tip, it will become very easy to plot. See, I have to plot the graphs for the same gas at two different temperatures. You can see that first option A, first option I'm writing. Okay, this is fraction of particles, this is speed, correct? You can see first one is at 300, one is at 150 K. So you can easily make out that as the temperature increases, it will become more and more flatter. So this would be of graph B, and this would be of graph A. This would be the information of A. Second plot, you can check SO2 and O2. So in this case, what we need to do, we need to check out m by t ratio, correct? So m by t ratio for the first case, that is A and B. Check out for A and B. M by 2, m is how much? 64, correct? Divided by t, that is 300. Here this is 32 by 300. So it is clearly showing A is more greater than B. So therefore, if at all I plot the graph here like this, then this will be of A and this will be of B. So this is the second plot. See the third graph here. SO2 at 400K and O2 at 200K. Okay. So again, you can check this out. It is at 464 divided by 400, and this is 32 divided by 200. They are coming to be exactly same. So therefore, there will be only one graph. Both of them will coincide that graph. So A and B, same graph. Last one, if you check out, it is about SO2 at 500, O2 at 300. Okay. So we just need to check out. I'll keep it as 600 to make it solving becomes easy here. Got it? No, 600 will become same. Let me keep 500 only. Yeah. If it is 500, how does it look like? See, now I'll have to make this as 64 divided by 500, and this is 32 divided by 300. So again, this is greater value. So therefore, out of these two graphs, this would be of A and this would be of B. Okay. So I hope the distribution graphs are clear, guys. So this is one typical area which has been focused on JE. So you should be able to plot these graphs. Okay. See, in NCERT there is no direct formula that is given, but once you know the formula, deriving all of this, all the terms to prove becomes very easily. So I hope you guys understood what is Boltzmann's Maxwell's Boltzmann's curve. So these are the type of questions will be asked. Okay. Okay. Now going further, now we'll discuss about bimolecular collisions. Okay. So how bimolecular collisions happens and what are their applications? Okay, 1 minute. Right, check this. To understand bimolecular collision, we have to go through certain situations. So let me take you through different important terms first, so then you will be able to understand at a faster pace. Check it out. Now suppose if I consider a container having only one type of a molecule, which means their diameter is same. Obviously mass is same as well as their diameter is same. Okay, diameter as in radius, diameter, mass, they all have same. Second assumption is, assume that all the particles in the container are stationary except one reference molecule which is moving with a speed u average. Okay, u bar here is u average. Got it? So imagine this is a container. Just be with me and listen like a story first. Got it? So this is a container. Imagine all the red color balls which I kept, red color dots which I kept, these are all the general particles and this one is a reference particle. Okay. So according to this, what I am saying, if this reference particle is moving with a speed of some u average, this is moving with some speed u average. Okay. Now in that case, what I want you to understand next is, suppose if it is moving and imagine in 1 second, the distance traveled, the distance covered by reference molecule, the distance covered by reference molecule will be u bar only, correct? Because time t is equal to 1. So you can see, let's say this is the distance traveled. So from this position, let me fix this position as A, it has reached to a position B. Okay, by covering a distance of how much? U bar distance it has covered, moving with the speed of u bar. Okay, let me define the diameter. This is also called the collision diameter. Okay, diameter. This is a bigger sigma. There are two types of sigma. One is the smaller sigma, which you are aware of. This is a bigger sigma. So let me define the diameter of every particle is sigma. So it is covering in 1 second, it is covering a distance of u bar. Now consider the next point. Suppose consider a cylinder with the center coinciding with the reference atom at both ends with a radius of cylinder being diameter of the molecule. Okay, so this is the radius, which is sigma. Now consider at both ends. Okay, I am making a diameter. So this is the diameter which I am making. I mean, this is the radius which I am making, and the radius is of the range of diameter. Radius is of the range of diameter of the particle. Okay, so this is from position A, it has moved to position B. If I consider some kind of a cylinder like this, okay, which has a diameter, which has a radius of sigma. Okay, now what I can say, this volume in this volume of this cylinder which you assume, imagine now if there is every particle which is present, while this particle is moving, See, while this particle is moving from here to here, from this point, this particle is moving from this position to this position, that is from A to B. My object is to find out how many collisions it does. If at all I have to find how many collisions it does, imagine this reference molecule while it is moving. If any particle like this, if you check out, if this particle, their center, is inside this cylinder or exactly at the surface, correct, inside the cylinder or exactly at the surface, it will definitely make a collision. See, while this is moving like this, okay, this particle will make a collision here. I mean, this is a reference particle. I'm showing the motion of a reference particle. So if a particle is here, a reference particle will definitely collide here. If a particle is here, reference particle will definitely collide. This reference particle will collide with this, as long as these three particles will have their centers on their respective centers, either on the cylinder or inside the cylinder. But if they are slightly outside the cylinder, if their centers are outside the cylinder, definitely they won't make any collision. There won't be any impact of the collision. I think you guys understood what I'm trying to say. Okay. So that is one thing. And second thing, as I said, if the center of every molecule does not lie in the cylinder, then there won't be any collision taking place. There won't be any collision. Like this, you can see the center is actually now shifted to this point. Here is the center. This is their center. This is their center. Now center is away or outside the cylinder, so definitely there won't be any collision. So the moving reference particle does not touch them. Okay. So that way I'm trying to analyze how many number of such collisions can happen. For that we need some important terms here. Let me just take you through those important terms first. First, as I defined, collision diameter is defined as sigma. Next, collision next collision cross sectional area. Collision cross sectional area as in the area through which this cylinder is forming. Okay, so which is pi sigma square. Next, you can see that next one what we are checking out is the volume of the cylinder. How much will be the volume of that cylinder which it will make? Pi sigma square into u star. Why u star? That u bar, that is the length, right? So that is the length that it has covered. So this is the surface area, right? Surface area is pi r square, like pi omega square here, into the length, right? That is the volume of the cylinder. I'm sure you know that. Okay, so we know the volume of the cylinder. Now read this. If number of molecules present in a unit volume, if number of molecules present in a unit volume will be n star, which is n by v. N is the total number of particles present in the cylinder divided by the volume. Then n will be equal to n is equal to total number of particles and v is the volume. Then n star will be equal to n by v. Okay. Now number of particles present in the cylinder. How many number of particles will be present in the cylinder? If n star is the number of particles per volume, then number of cylinder particles present in the cylinder will be n star into volume. Simple proportion here. So what I am doing, if you have for one unit I have n star number of particles, then for pi omega sigma sorry pi omega sigma square into u bar will have how many particles in it? That is the question I'm asking, right? So it's a simple proportion. So you multiply with that. So we will get this as number of particles present in the cylinder. Okay. Now, how many collisions will happen? Well, there are so many cylinders. There are so many particles. Then how many collisions will happen? Then the number of collisions made by the reference particle in 1 second, okay, in that 1 second will be the same number of particles which they are, because as long as I am assuming their centers are inside the cylinder, then I am counting that is a part of that cylinder, correct? So therefore it would make this many number of collisions. So pi pi sigma square into u bar into n star. N star is number of particles per unit volume. Okay. These collisions are termed as collision number. What we just derived is called as collision number. What exactly is the definition for it? It is the number of bimolecular collisions by one particle in unit time. Read that again. It is the number of bimolecular collisions by one particle in unit time. Okay. So in unit time, how many number of collisions, a bimolecular collisions it can make? That is Z1 factor. Okay. This would be directly asked in exams, guys. So remember what is Z1. Okay. Collision number is Z1. Next, if all the particles are moving with an average speed of the system, earlier what I said, when we were deriving this, we took one important assumption that rest of all the particles are not moving except the reference particle. Now what I am doing, I am slightly improvising on that. I am saying if all the particles are moving with an average speed of the system now, then what are the possible type of collisions that can happen? Because what happens now, if their absolute average speed, if their average speed is u bar, okay, but during the time of collision there would be an exchange of energy, there would be exchange of momentum, because of which their speed changes. So again I will get some average after collisions, correct? So we are trying to find out what is that. See, what are the possible type of collisions you can imagine? Two particles may collide like this head on. If they are colliding head on, what is the angle of collision which they will make? It is like this vector and this vector, you know, are added up each other. So what is the angle between them? 180 degrees, correct? Next one, if two particles are colliding, okay, one is going this way, the other one is also going in this way. So if both of them will collide, right, so what will be the angle here? Angle of collision would be equal to 0. Now if it is going with some angle, one particle is going with this angle, the other particle is trying to hit that, then the angle made, that would be some theta, and that will be an acute angle which is less than 90. If suppose if it is going this way, then it will make an obtuse angle. Or if it is going this way, one particle is going this way, the reference particle is hitting it this way, then it will make an angle of 90 degrees. So out of all these, what we have observed, that the angle of collision would definitely vary only between 0 to 180 degrees. So angle of collisions will only vary between 0 to 180 degrees. Therefore, the average angle of collision is 90 degrees, correct? So what is the average between 0 to 180 degrees? That is 90 degrees. So we can always assume that two particles on an average will, one particle will move this way, the other particle will move this way, and makes a bimolecular collision here. Okay, so this is what something which we can assume, because if you see such a bulk amount of particles, that means we are taking a large number of particles, then we can definitely say an average will come out to be an angle of collision with 90 degrees. So if that, suppose, let me take 2-3 particles here, okay, like this, okay, in all different directions. Suppose if these two are colliding, correct, and if these two are colliding, this is a reference particle. If this is colliding here and this is coming from here, this is coming from here, this is going here, sorry, this is coming from here, this is coming from here, okay. So the possibilities from all different directions, I totally agree. But when you say an impact of collision, okay, you will learn this in physics again. Whenever you taking a collision, you only talk about two mutually exclusive vectors, not all the vectors. Now if you take any two mutually exclusive vectors, what is the maximum angle they can make? Check out, it will be between 0 to 180 degrees only. You can change the quadrant as you wish. See here, suppose, be with me on this. If I take these two, this is the angle which it will make. If I take these two, this is the angle which it will make. If I take these two, this is the angle which it will make. If at all I take this one and this one, this is the angle which it will make. Okay, if at all I take this one and this one, this is the angle which it will make. Okay, if at all I take this one and this one, so this is the angle which it is making. This is called angle of impact or angle of collision. Okay, so it is not I have fixed a particular origin and then I am moving around it. We are supposed to talk exclusively about a collision with two vectors only, not other possibilities. But within those two vectors, what are the possibilities which we can make? How much angle that it will sweep is around 0 to 180 degrees. Is it making sense now? Who asked that?
Sir, I'm Pritam, sir.
Ha, Pritam, have you understood that beta? Please,
Once repeat, sir.
huh?
Once repeat, sir.
Okay, what I'm saying, check this out. Suppose if these are all the possible, this is the actual, this is your reference particle which I have drawn here. This is a reference particle, okay? It is moving in this direction, it is fixed. It is moving in this direction, okay? Now what are the angles other particles are making? Let us go with that. This particle is making an angle this way. What is the angle between them? It is somewhere between 0 to 180 only, no? I hope you got that point. Same way, if this particle, let us consider this particle is moving this way. What is the angle between them? Again, it will is somewhere between 0 to 180 degrees. If at all I take this particle, it is moving this way, making a collision. Again, the angle between them is 0 to 180 degrees. Collisions may happen in all 360 degrees, but angle of the collision between the two particles will always vary between 0 to 180 degrees. That is what I am trying to tell. Is it making sense now?
Sir, you said that the resultant will be perpendicular.
Now, if you take average of these two all angles, how much you will get?
Sir, if we consider all particles coming at a time, sir, they will move. They will make no difference.
But collisions has to be bimolecular only. That is the first assumption, right? We are only talking about at a time there should be only one collision. Okay, so which means if these two are colliding, suppose if this one and this one are colliding, then I'm not talking about what other particles and how they are colliding. Between these two I will get some angle, between these two I will get some angle, again between these two I will get some angle, between these two I will get some angle, between these two I will get some angle. So if I consider all those angles, what will be the average? Now check this out. If not, I will give you one reference of how to check out the collisions, because in physics we have not started with collisions yet, right? So I'll give you one reference, just go through that, you should be able to understand. Okay, now, so the average angle that that it will sweep is around 90 degrees. So if it is 90 degrees, what is the average angle every particle, average speed every particle will have now? Because this is u and u, this is how they are colliding. So the average speed will be, this is the resultant, so that would be equal to under root of 2 into u original average. So this would be the new speed of the particles, root 2 into u. So in the same thing, this time what we are doing, we were discussing about Z1, right, which is collision number. So in the collision number, I just made that correction now. So now the number of bimolecular collisions covering in a cylinder with respect to one single molecule is how much? That would be pi sigma square into root 2 into u average. Earlier I used to write only u average. Now I will be writing it as root 2 average into n star. N star is n by v. Okay, so you can see that here how I put down. So these are all the particles which are moving now. Earlier they were not moving. Now you can see they are moving. Okay, so if they are moving, all of them are making collisions with the reference particle at some angles, and that angle would be between 0 to 180 degrees. So that is why we are taking an average of that speed. Okay. So what we just calculated is the collision number z when all particles are moving. So this is the result what we got. So when all particles are moving, this is how much we will get. Sorry. So when all particles are moving, this is how much we will get. Root 2 into pi sigma square into u average into n bar, n star. Okay. Now check this. What we have understood from here, that we got a formula where this n star is equal to n by v, and v is the volume of the container. Now if the volume of the container is constant, it is not changing. If the volume of the container is constant, then this collision number will only dependent on u average. Rest all are constants, you can see that. So z1 will be proportional to under root of T by m. Okay, so at a constant volume, if the temperature is increased, then number of collision number will always increase. Z1 will increase. And if you consider any two particles at same temperature, two different gases at same temperature, then Z1 will depend upon their molar mass, inversely proportional to their molar mass. More the molar mass, less will be the number of collisions. Okay, I hope you can conclude from there. Now, next important conclusion is, if volume is not constant, if volume is changing, then we know that we can write PV is equal to nRT. Then NV can be written as RT by P or P by RT. Now, I multiply Na on both the sides. If I multiply Na, N into Na will become number of particles, and number of particles by V is given as N star. We just got that. So N star will be equal to P into Na by RT. So Z1 is equal to root 2 pi sigma square into U star. What was that? What is that? U average. U average is nothing but average speed, which is 8 RT by pi m. So let me put that. So 8 RT by pi m into P into Na divided by RT. This is what we got. So you can see now it is dependent on this temperature. Got it? So one particular gas, if I consider one particular gas, as the volume keeps changing, how does the collision number depends on? Collision number is proportional to pressure, and it is inversely proportional to root of temperature. This is how the dependency comes when the volume is changing. Any doubt so far, guys? What is collision number? Is it clear now? Now, let us come to collision frequency. Collision number is different, collision frequency is different. See, what is collision frequency? It is the total number of bimolecular collisions by all the particles. Earlier it was about one particle. Now if you take all the particles in unit time and unit volume. So in unit time and unit volume, if I consider all the particles, right, then what will be the number of collisions is what we define it as collision frequency. Now assume there are 4 particles here, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see, actually I should put it at different colors. Let me put it as different colors. 1, okay, let me put this as the same color here, and one I'll put with this green, okay, and one maybe this color, okay, these 4 colors. So imagine these 4 colors are there. So here this is one color, okay, then this is the other color here, and finally this is that color. Okay, so let's say these are the 4 particles. Now if these 4 particles will collide with each other, how many possible number of permutations we can get, how many possible number of collisions we can get. You can think this way: one is colliding with 2, one is colliding with 3, one is colliding with 4. Similarly, I can say 2 is colliding with 1, 2 is colliding with 3, 2 is colliding with 4, and so on. So the total number of possibilities when you have 4 particles is 12 collisions, correct? So you can see, so I can have 12 possible combinations or collisions that could happen. But we know that 1 colliding with 2 or 2 colliding with 1 is same. So which means every particle will have one repetition of its own when you count the total number of collisions. Okay, hence the total number of collisions when you are doing, correct, then the number of collisions will be half the possible number of collisions which you have. So therefore, if you check out the bimolecular collision, Z1 is number of, what is Z1? Z1 is, number of collisions done by one particle. If there are n particle, I will get this many number of collisions. Z into 1 will be the number of collisions. But what we learned that the number of collisions is repetitive by half, correct? So that is what I have written here. So this one, what I got here now, the number of collisions, you can see the number of bimolecular collisions will be half into Z1 into n. These are the total number of bimolecular collisions in unit time. So far, keep watching this carefully, it is still unit time, not unit volume. The minute you put it for unit volume also, that's when it will become collision frequency. So now the complete definition. The number of bimolecular collisions by all the particles in unit time and unit volume is collision frequency. Okay, so Z11 is equal to 1 by 2 into Z1 n by V. Okay, now if I put the values of Z1 what we got it as root 2 into pi sigma square U average into n by V. One more n by V has come, so that is why it will become n by V whole. Okay, so Z1 is equal to 1 by 2 root 2 pi sigma square into U average into n by V whole square. Okay, so now if the volume is constant, now this is the collision frequency what we got, that is the total number of collisions per unit volume per unit time. If volume is constant, right, only it depends upon sigma. Okay, correct. If volume is constant, only it depends upon that sigma, because that sorry, not sigma, U average. So U average will only depend upon root T. Got it? It is for same gas. Obviously, I'm talking it for same gas. For the same gas, considering all the particles, Z11 will be proportional to root T. So if temperature is increased, the collision frequency will increase. A very important fundamental that will be used in chemical kinetics. So remember that as temperature increases, collision frequency of the gas increases. Of gas increases at constant. Now, if the volume is not constant, you can see if the volume is not constant, then Z11 will be proportional to root T, which is coming from the speed, and also we just derived that N by V can be written as pressure into Na by RT. So that whole square will come. So we will get that as Z11 is proportional to P square divided by T raised to power of 3 by 2. So this is what you will get. Correct? So this was asked once in JEE, how it is related. So collision frequency is directly related to pressure square divided by temperature power 3 by 2, considering volume is changing. Okay, I think this point is clear. Any doubt with the collision frequency? This is slightly out of the syllabus, but good for Olympiads. In Olympiads, this could be asked in a fashion here. Suppose if you have two different types of molecules present, we have A type of particles also, we have B type of particles. A has some average speed with some radius or diameter omega sigma 1. B has some sigma 2 diameter with speed, average speed as UB. Okay, the volume is constant, which is V. Then the collision frequency will be equal to the general formula. Now collision frequency will be pi omega square into some relative speed multiplied by n by v whole square. This is how it should be. Now what would be this sigma here? Sigma will be average of both the radiuses now. That is sigma 1 plus sigma 2 by 2. That will be the new sigma. N by v whole square will be equal to Na by v, which is the number of particles of A per unit volume, into Nb by v, which will be the number of particles per unit volume. Okay, and relative speed would be equal to under root of ua square plus ub square. Got it? So if I substitute all of those values here, ua square I can write it as art by pi m, ub square I can write it as art by pi mb, and take everything common. I'll get this as 8 rt into this value. I'll get it as 1 by mu. I am defining it as 1 by ma plus 1 by mb. Okay, this mu is termed as reduced mass. So instead of actually getting one mass, you will have one molar mass, you will have a reduced mass here, that into Na Nb by v square. So this will be the collision frequency for two types of particles present in a particular volume. Okay. So I hope you guys understood that, right? Now, mean free path is a very important application from collision theory. By definition, you can check out what mean free path is. It is the average distance traveled by particle between two collisions. That means if I start a particle here, okay, and it is traveling, it made a collision here after distance, after the distance covered d1. Again it made a collision after distance covered d2. Again made a collision after making a distance d3. Then sum of all those distance or the distance traveled divided by the total number of particles is what, total number of collisions is what we make it as mean free path. So therefore it is the average distance traveled by the particle between two successive collisions. In a way, I can write the same thing as a definition here as total distance traveled by particle in unit time divided by total number of collisions by a particle in unit time. Correct? Because that much amount of distance it is traveling divided by the total number of collisions which it is making. So therefore u average is the distance traveled in unit time, we know that, divided by total number of collisions of a particle, because we are only talking about a collision number, not collision frequency here. Okay, so mean free path is with respect to one particle. So for one particle we have collision number which is z1. So u average divided by that z1. So when you divide that z1, u average and u average will get cancelled. So lambda will be equal to 1 by this entire value, root 2 pi sigma square into n star. Got it? Now n star, we know that it is n by v. Got it? N by v I can write it as p into Na by rt. Got it? So if I substitute that value, p will come in the denominator, n will come in the numerator. Okay. So I guess you guys can see that how it is going to come there. Any doubts so far? Right. So this is what the value you will get. So this was asked, recently in 2015, like how lambda is dependent on these two. So I can say that lambda 1 by lambda 2 of two different gases will be equal to, okay, considering both of them have similar radius. This is something which they will give you. If they have similar radius, what I can say, it will be T1 by P1 into P2 by T2. So this is the way you can check it out. Okay guys, so I hope you understood how it is. Sometimes it would be given at same temperature and pressure how the the diameter or radius is given. So in that case also you can calculate lambda 1 and lambda 2. Okay. I hope you understood that, guys. Okay, this is the most important application out of all, because this one is more frequently, as this is directly in your JEE syllabus. Okay, now check this out. If a question is given where I have to find out all these terms, how we can solve? Two containers A and B containing equal volumes, maintained at 300 kelvins and 600 kelvins. Flask A has H2 gas and flask B as an equal mass of CH4 gas. Mass is same, okay? Remember that point. Calculate the ratio of given parameters A is to B. Ratio of their diameters is given, okay? So we need to first calculate ratio of number of moles, pressure, U average, kinetic energy, collision number, mean free path, and collision frequency. Okay, so these are all the terms which you have to calculate. Got it? So I have done the calculation in bits and pieces. So I will just show you one by one. So it will make it easier for you. Just check it out. First, we have to calculate ratio in terms of number of molecules. But for that, one hint which is given is the weight is same. So weight of H2 and CH4 is same. So since the weight is same, I can say number of molecules will be number of mole ratio. So W by 2, which is the number of moles of H2, W by 16, number of moles of CH4. So I would get a ratio of 8:1. Okay. Next you can see rate of pressure. To calculate the rate of pressure, like rate of pressure, okay, volume is constant, so pressure will only depend upon number of moles, and temperature into Ta is to Nb into Tb. Got it? So that would be the ratio of pressures. So what I can say, number of moles is W by 2 into temperature is given as 300 is equal to W by 16 into 600. So the ratio comes out to be 4:1. Okay, so that would be the ratio of pressures. Next, ratio of average speeds. So that would be equal to 8 RT by pi m, and here it would be Ta by Ma. This will be Tb by Mb. Ta is given, Ma molar mass, for hydrogen. This is for CH4. Substitute that, you will get this as 2:1. Okay, rest of the parts you guys just go through that. You should be able to get that. I hope you guys understood that. Okay.